Let me describe two people. Person one, they spend 15 years building a career at a company. They're good, they're really good at what they do, but they feel stuck. Every year, they hope for a promotion, a raise, some recognition that what they bring to the table is worth more than what they're being paid. But it never quite happens the way they imagine. And person two, they left corporate life to start something on their own. They have the expertise, the track record, the results, but they struggle to price themselves. Every time they quote their work, that inner voice inside says, maybe that's too much. And they ended up discounting, negotiating against themselves, feeling like they can't quite justify their own worth. Two very different situations, but the exact same problem. They both confuse their value with their role. And today we're going to fix that. I'm Luis Pinate, and this is Pricing Who You Are. In episode 1, we started mapping what monetize who you are actually means. We broke it down into 4 elements: your knowledge, your experience, your natural gift, and your area of application. Those 4 things together are the raw material of your real value. But here's the problem most people run into. And this is what today is really about. They know that these 4 things exist, but they don't know how to separate them from the box they've been put in, or the box they put themselves in. And that box has a name. We call it your role. Most people, when asked, what do you do? Answer with the title. I'm a marketing manager. I'm a project director. I'm a financial analyst. Or if they go independent, they might say, I'm a coach, or I'm a consultant, or I do branding. That answer, that title, is not your value. It's your role. And there's a massive difference between the two. Your role is what you were hired to do. Your role is the job description on a piece of paper, or the title on LinkedIn, or the category someone else created and put it on you. Your value is something entirely different. Your value is what you actually produce when you show up. It's the judgment that you bring that no one else in the room has. It's the pattern recognition built over years that lets you see what others miss. It's the combination of everything you know, everything you lived, and the natural way your mind works, applied to a specific context where it changes outcomes. And the problem is this: our entire system, corporate, educational, social, train us to think in roles. From the moment we graduate school, we're sorted in categories, and those categories became our identity. And we stop asking, what is the value I created? And then we start asking, am I performing my role well enough? That's the trap. And it affects everyone: the senior executive waiting to be recognized, the entrepreneur who undersells themselves every single time, and the professional who knows they're worth more, but they can't figure it out how to prove it. You cannot, at any point, price who you are if you do not know how to separate who you are from what your role says you are. And here's the shift I want you to make. Stop, please, asking, what is my role worth? Start asking, what is the outcome I create? And what is it worth to the person who needs it? That's the key. Those are completely different questions, and they lead to a completely different answer. Let me give you 2 examples, one from the corporate world and one from the entrepreneurial world. The corporate professional. Imagine a senior HR director who has spent 12 years building and transforming people's teams inside companies going through major changes. Her title says HR director. Her role says manage hiring, compliance, and people's operation. But what she actually does is that she keeps organizations from falling apart, especially during critical transitions. She reads cultures like a map. She reroutes it before crisis happens. And that is not an HR function. This is a strategic capability with enormous economic value. If she keeps defining herself with her title, she'll keep being paid like an HR director. But if she separates her value from her role, if she owns what she actually produces, suddenly the conversation with any organization, any board, any stakeholder changes completely. Now, the entrepreneur. Imagine someone that left a 15-year career in operations to start their own consulting practice. They know how to turn around dysfunctional processes, reduce costs, build systems at scale, but they're priced themselves at a daily rate. Because that's what consultants do, right? I guess that's what it is. But that's the role. That's the category. But their value isn't a day rate. Their value is the difference between a company that keeps bleeding money and one that runs the way it should. And that gap, that outcome, has a price tag that has nothing to do with the days or with the hours. In both cases, the problem is in capability, right? The problem is that they're pricing their role instead of the real value. I have personally been on both sides of this. I spent years on corporate, international markets, sales, leadership, working across different building cultures and different continents. And for a long time, even I defined myself by what I did, by the function I held, the company I represented, or the region I manage. And when I step out of that world to build something for my own, the biggest challenge wasn't the clients or the markets. It was this: I had to learn to see myself differently, to stop being the role and start being the real value. That process, which I know help other professionals go through, starts with a deceptively simple question. If you remove your job title, your company name, or your industry label, what's left? What do you actually do that changes things? For most people, that question is very uncomfortable because we're not used to see ourselves outside of the box. The answer to that question, that is your real asset. That is what you should be pricing, and that is what the market will pay at a premium for once you can articulate it clearly, of course. So, how do you start making this shift? I want to give you three questions to sit with this week. These are not theoretical, these are the starting point of the work we do in the Monetize Who You Are program. And they will start to separate your value from your role immediately. Question one: what problem do I solve that others can't or won't? Not what tasks do I perform, not what deliverables do I produce. What problem, real, specific, painful, do I solve for people, and why can just anyone else solve it in the same way I do? The answer to that question is where your differentiation lives. Question two: what has my experience made me see that others still miss? Your years of experience didn't just teach you skills, they gave you a lens, a way of reading situations, anticipating problems, connecting dots faster than others. And that lens, that pattern recognition is part of your value. It doesn't show up in a job description, but it shows up in every outcome you create. And question three: who needs what I produce? And what does it cost them not to have it? This is the economic question. Not what is my time worth, but what is the consequence of this person or this organization not having access to what I bring? When you can answer that question clearly, pricing becomes a very different conversation. These three questions are how you begin to separate your value from your role. They work whether you're inside a company trying to redefine your position or you're building something independently and trying to command the rates your expertise deserves. And here is what I want you to carry from today, starting today. You're not your title. And I think this should be clear by now. You're not your job description. You're not the category someone else created for you. You are the sum of what you know, what you've lived, what comes naturally to you, and where that combination creates real outcome for real people. That is your value. And that value exists completely independently of whatever role you happens to be in right now. The moment you make that separation truly makes it. Not just intellectually, but in the way you talked about yourself, position yourself, and price yourself. Everything changes. The opportunity changes. The clients change. The offers change. That separation is exactly what we built inside the Monetize Who You Are program. If you're ready to do that work, the link is in the description. Come and see what is this about. But if today's episode resonates with you, if you recognize yourself in those two people that I described at the beginning, share this with someone who needs to hear it because this conversation matters. And too many talented people are still trapped inside a role that doesn't really reflect who they really are. In the episode 3, we're going to go deeper into the 4D expertise map, specifically into the piece that most people underestimate, your natural gift. Know what you have learned, know what you have practiced, but what you were born to see and do. And how can you turn that into something the market will pay a premium for? Until then, stay agile and remember, your value was never in your role. See you next time.